What is going on, everybody? This is Will Tondo, House Enterprise and House of College Hoops, and this is the Hoops Therapy Session. We have a Final Four set. We have 4 teams heading to Houston, ready to make a crazy championship run. I mean, we were talking off air, and we don't know who's going. A lot of people like UConn. A lot of people don't like UConn. We don't know yet, but a lot going on. This Hoops Therapy Session is for busted brackets and, of course, the Final Four. And it is presented by online-therapy.com. Online Therapy is the #1 toolbox that has video, phone, and chat therapy sessions. If you head to our blog, find it all over the site. Enjoy 20% off right now with our link and start your journey to happiness. Today, we are joined by Michael DeRosa and Josh Burton, our 2 college basketball fans from many different backgrounds. We got Butler, we got Georgetown, we got Kentucky, we got all of college hoops. And we're here to talk some shop. We are here to talk some shop. So first and foremost, Michael and Josh, how's everything going? And tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Hanging in there. A lot of transfer portal is wild. Butler's reached out to him in the portal, and it looks like they've struck out. But other than that, a lot of portal season left. We're ready for roar.
Yeah, pretty much, picking myself up after another early exit for the Cats. And other than that, just watching the tournament, wild as it's been and kind of unfolding there, keeping an eye on the transfer portal. It's the craziest time of year right now. And we're set for a crazy Final Four. After last year was blue blood filled, this year is wide open.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't even got to the transfer portal yet. And we talked about it last week where it's like, oh, we should wait because, once the season goes, the floodgates are going to open. Now with the coaching carousel, people are moving. People are dancing. People are moving around. So we're going to definitely have to probably touch upon this before the Final Four. But for now, we're talking busted brackets. And I'm going to start with you, Josh, because you shared with us something that you quite literally wear on your sleeve. Your Kentucky Wildcats. What the hell happened? How are you feeling? What's going on? What's the pulse check? And, share us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, on screen, you can see right there, I literally have this on my sleeve. So I've got to be a fan for life, right? But as far as the pulse of Big Blue Nation, it's disappointing. You look back, everybody wants to talk about the last couple years. 3 years ago, we missed the tournament. And then last year, the first round exit to St. Peter's. And then this year, coming into the season with such high expectation and high hopes, where we're a top 5 preseason team. We've got the reigning National Player of the Year returning back. We've got a loaded roster on paper, it felt like. And we underperformed. It started back in November. We lose a heartbreaker in overtime to Michigan State in a game we controlled. We go to Gonzaga and get beat up. We lost every big game imaginable. And then once we kind of counted them out after the South Carolina loss at home, then we go to beat Tennessee and go on a 4-game win streak. And then we kind of pick it up. And then we lose a game and pick another 4-game win streak up. So by the end of the year, we kind of got our hopes back up. Well, we thought, this team could potentially get up to a 5 seed maybe if they play their cards right and win out. Well, then we go to the SEC tournament and we lose to Vandy, and then we come in as a 6 seed. Still high hopes. Thought, all right, this bracket's not bad. We can make a run. We beat Providence, which snapped the 1,400-day winless streak in the NCAA tournament, which is wild to say for Kentucky. And then we play maybe the game of the tournament, especially to that point, in the round of 32 against Kansas State, and just fell short. So if you would have said at the beginning of the year to Big Blue Nation that, you're going to struggle this bad and then you're going to get out in the round of 32, that's not acceptable. And then when you kind of look back at the season, though, the fact that we even got to the round of 32 when in early February after the loss to Georgia, we didn't even know if we'd be in the tournament. So it's kind of that roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, you don't make another Sweet 16, you're another first weekend exit in the NCAA tournament, especially as a preseason top 5. It's not acceptable. We demand more. This is a program that demands Final Fours, demands national titles, and we continue to fall short. And it seems like the worst part about it is it's not for lack of talent. It's because of a mixture of things, but we're getting out coached. We're getting outplayed by guys who don't have the 5 and 4 stars next to their name. So the fact that we keep coming up short is frustrating. So heading into next year, it is with the class we've got coming in, it has to be a dominant back to Kentucky basketball type year, or else the shit's going to hit the fan.
4-game. You mentioned this twice. 4-game. Like we went on this 4-game win streak. We went on this 4-game win streak. I don't think I've watched one of my teams have a 4-game win streak in 5 years.
Yeah,
they don't win.
Well, and that's fair, and I completely understand that, considering like where your programs are at. But like again, it's Kentucky, and that's very elitist, and I understand that. But that's not acceptable. Like the fact that we got excited because like, oh, we won 4 games in a row, we went to Tennessee and beat Tennessee, and we beat a good Texas A&M. Like that's expected. Like that's expected. Like we should not go into games against Alabama, and I know they were great this year, and Arkansas and Tennessee. We should not be the ones that should be underdogs. That's just the way we've always looked at it. And the fact that we have here lately in the last couple of years, we've been underdogs in games like that. That's not good for the program. That's not what we've been used to, and that's not acceptable.
I think
now, John,
you go.
You go, DeRosa, because I'm going to crack open a can of worms that I don't know what I'm going to
yeah. Then I'll get this one out real quick. Then you mentioned the class next year. I know like next year's like recruiting class for Kentucky is like amazing compared to like everyone else, but also as a whole, the whole like 2023, I believe it is, class isn't anything special. So just like, what are some general expectations knowing that this is probably one of the worst like recruiting classes as a whole in like the last 10, 15 years?
No, that's absolutely fair. Well, there's a lot of excitement because it's the first time in a couple of years we've got the number 1 overall class. It's a very vintage Calipari class where you get a guy like Justin Edwards, DJ Wagner, or Aaron Bradshaw, Rob Dillingham. You know, we got 5 of the top 35 guys, which is exciting. And I know the overall class is kind of down, but you still look at guys like DJ Wagner. He's a pro. Justin Edwards is a pro. Aaron Bradshaw is a 7-foot unicorn that steps out and hit threes, blocks shots. He's a pro. Dillingham, it might take him 2 years, but he's got pro handles. He's got an offensive game. He needs to kind of fill out and get better on defense. But we've got pros, and that's been the problem the last couple of years. We don't have pros. So this class, while it's down, there's a lot of excitement. And I think most of us in Big Blue Nation are excited because it feels like a very vintage Calipari team where it's going to be guard heavy with super talented pros leading the offense that can play bully ball, that would hopefully, I feel like, can score, get out in transition, defend. Everything that made Cal's teams, especially in the early years at Kentucky, great. At least this class on the surface feels like one of those classes. So you're right. The class as a whole is down, but the players we've got coming in are pros. So I think that helps.
So, all right. Before I do my coffin, nail in the coffin bit, guy like Bryce Hopkins, I mean, put your hat on from last year's perspective, right? Going in, you have him obviously recruited. He doesn't play much. He transfers. What are your thoughts when he leaves? Were you upset? Were you, whatever? He was he didn't have a role on this team at the moment. What were your thoughts from there?
So you've seen flashes. He got to play a little bit in the LSU game last season where we came back from LSU had us down like double digits and he had like a 23-point game. So you've seen the flashes, but he just didn't get the time. So you kind of thought, well, maybe some more minutes, he could be a little better player. But then the day nobody expected him to go to Providence this last year and do what he did. So I wasn't that upset with it. But it is a trend that is something to keep an eye on because not only is it Bryce Hopkins, you can go back to Johnny Juzang. He was just a role guy for us, played like 8 minutes a game in his time at Kentucky, knocked down an occasional 3. Then he transferred to UCLA and had 2 tremendous years, led him to a Final Four and almost a national title game. Go back before that, Charles Matthews spent 1 year in Lexington, was kind of a rotational guy in the same vein, barely played, had a lot of talent, transfers out, goes to Michigan, and has an all Big Ten type of year. So we see it all the time where these kind of end of the rotation guys that get recruited in that are 4 or 5-star kids, maybe whatever happens, Cal doesn't see it in them, he doesn't play them is the essential part of the reason they transfer out. and then they go elsewhere and then they light it up. So I don't know what it is with Cal on that, but there's been precedents before. So it's like if you transfer, like the rumor today is that Damian Collins is leaning towards transferring out. Now that's a kid that's been in the program for a couple years, and he's a 5-star kid, got a lot of talent. He still needs to fill out, but shot blocker, can shoot from 15 feet. If he transfers out and goes somewhere else, like let's say he goes back home to like Texas or Texas Tech, Texas A&M, he could be a star for them. So I think that's more indicative on Cal not giving guys more opportunities to play within the style which he's brought them in for. Because even if Bryce would have stayed, let's be honest, Cal wouldn't have let him shot threes. He wouldn't have. He would have made him play a traditional 4-man, post up, back to the basket, swing the ball out. He wouldn't have got to run in like a point forward. So that's a lot on Cal and kind of his viewpoint of certain players.
So is Coach Cal in the hot seat? Because Josh, you and I talk shop about baseball all the time. You're sounding, your fanhood sounds a lot like Yankees fans, where it's either top of the world, and I'm a Yankees fan, I'll own up to it, either top of the world, or when this team doesn't meet expectations, it is rock bottom.
Yep.
A lot of people had Coach Cal's job on the line after they lost to, Kansas State. What's the pulse check on that? Are we still riding this historic Hall of Famer, or is it time to hand over the reins sooner rather than later?
What's funny, you make the Yankees comparison because that's kind of always been the comparison to like other high major sports teams in the world of sports, like the Yankees and Kentucky basketball or Alabama football. We're all kind of the same. We're so used and have such a rich history and tradition that it's win or nothing. There's no excuses. So it's funny you made that comparison, but there's two sectors of Big Blue Nation when it comes to Cal. There's the ones who are extreme, where they're like, we got to get rid of him. He's killing us. And there's some truth to that. But then there's the other extreme where they defend him with their life, where they're like, oh, no, we've got to keep him. We've got to keep him. I'm in the middle. Like, I'm over some of the stuff as far as his lack of like in-game changes, substitutions, lack of scouting, not running out of bounds plays, not putting the guys in the right spot, running an outdated offense, all that. But then I'm also in the other camp because you mentioned you're a Yankees fan. Well, I remember as a Reds fan back in the early 2010s when we were making playoffs in NL Central, and people in Reds Nation were saying, we got to get rid of Dusty Baker. We'll never win a playoff series with him. And I kept telling people, be careful what you wish for, because yes, it sucks going out in the playoffs, but we're making them, right? So I keep trying to tell people in Big Blue Nation, that's fine. Get rid of Cal, but you better damn sure make sure that you bring in somebody that's just as good as him, if not better. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of coaches out there right now that's at that level. So if it means that we continue to get high recruiting classes, we're always in the conversation, we may fail and come short, but we're always in the conversation, then I'll keep Cal as opposed to making a snap decision and bringing somebody in like a Billy Clyde Gillespie in the program. So I'm right in the middle. Like, I'm over some of his stuff, and definitely he needs to get better, but you can't just get rid of him if you do not have a replacement that's at the very least at his level. If we say Cal is like an A level coach, A-, you got to at least bring an A-, A level coach. You can't go to a B+ because you're taking a step back. And unfortunately, unless it's like a Bill Self, or if you can pluck a Jay Wright somehow, or a Billy Donovan, there's not a lot of coaches out there at that level. So we have to ride with him.
So Coach Cal needs to do what in the next 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years for you to change your opinion? Obviously, national title is, especially with the expectations that you just mentioned for next year. But, the field is getting more crowded. It's not a, blue bud destined to make the Final Four and win a championship anymore type of basketball. What does he need to do for you to be like, realistically, okay, I'm okay with what he's, cooking up?
We've got to start looking better. We have to. The problem is we've not felt like Kentucky basketball. It has to feel like the big games. You have to go in knowing that Kentucky is going to win this game, and then there's a chance that we can lose. It can't go in like, well, man, I hope we win. It's got to get back to the point where we are striking fear in everybody's hearts when we come into town. It has to be that. And that includes, yes, we have to get back to Final Fours. But let's say we get back to a Final Four and maybe the next year we come up a little short, Elite Eight, maybe a Sweet 16. No big deal, because if we know that the things are going back in the right direction, the next year we'll be back to that same level. We have to start consistently getting back to what Kentucky basketball was and should be, not what it has been over the last 4 years. And as far as Coach Cal specifically, he's got to open up the offense, modernize. And that includes, I think, getting at least one assistant coach. Like we used to have John Robick as being the X's and O guy, and then Cal and the other staff would be the recruiters, and it worked perfectly. Ever since Robick got fired, let go, whatever happened a couple years ago, we've not had the X's and O's guy, and that side of the basketball is tanked. So if Cal has to modernize offense, and then Kentucky has to get back to being fun Kentucky basketball where we're proud of it and we're making Final Fours, making runs for the national title, and being fun again.
I think we honestly brought on two of the most fired up basketball fans in our entire network. I truly believe that. So, Josh,
passionate.
You gave us the Kentucky eulogy. What's on DeRosa's mind? Because I know he's itching something.
In terms of so I grew up a huge Georgetown fan, even though the Butler flag's back there. In terms of that, it's just you know what? They finally got rid of Ewing. You put there's a bit of section of the fan base yeah, he's a program legend. He deserved the job. No, he didn't. He was never qualified for it. There was never a reason to bring him on. I don't know why they brought him on. And then when it clearly wasn't working after the first 3 years, they brought him back for the fourth. They won the miracle title, which you can go down the list of coincidences and how you got lucky to do it, but we don't need to do that. We don't need to be here all day. Then we bring him back. You don't win a conference game. You bring him back the next year, and the cupboard's left bare for Coach Cooley. But you know what? At least they got rid of him. Cooley's building something. We'll see how that works. In terms of Butler, I kind of think they're dead. I'm very down. I don't know if Coach Mata is the right guy. I don't know. They haven't landed anyone in the portal. I feel like the transfer and recruiting as a whole is so momentum based. You get that first guy, then just it all opens up. And they haven't done that yet. It's very early, but I don't know if they're all that close. Some of the guys they're going after, it's you're going after Nick Timberlake. It's Rick Pitino's in meeting him. He's already had meetings with Arkansas. Boom, 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 boom. And he's coming to Butler? Really? It's you know what? If he does, that'd be awesome. I don't see it happening, but good on you. But I don't know. And then with the whole Big East landscape changing, it's just I don't know, man. It could be a rough year for a lot more rants coming on the Twitter feed, and I don't want that.
I know we're going to have some previews for Road to the Garden. And again, we're talking about stuff where we might have a Big East champion, but for a team like Butler, I mean, and I hate to say this, you're battling at the bottom of the table, especially with, you add Pitino to St. John's. You have Cooley at Georgetown. You cannot count out Providence and Kim English, even though that's a very, I'm not saying that they're going to win it all. I'm not saying that they're going to finish last. I think they're still above middle half, right? But again, I don't know. There's still a lot of transfers to come out. Villanova will always be Villanova, no matter who's playing, who's coaching. They just have that gel in them. And then you have your, Shaka Smart needs to win tournament games. UConn and Hurley need to get it done this year. Creighton, I mean, we're going to talk about busted brackets in a second, but Creighton, Xavier, they're good teams, and they will be for a while. So lot to talk about, lot to discuss this offseason. So we'll go ahead to the bracket now. Not Big East related, but our 1 seeds. Pour one out for the 1 seeds because tough day. And I mean, Purdue was a lifetime ago. Kansas was a while ago. Alabama and Houston. I mean, hand up. That was my final. That was a chalked up bullshit. I cannot believe it. And I sat there and made the bracket and said, no, this is the year. This is the year that it's going to happen. And we're going to have a great run. And it did not happen. So I'll open it up to you guys first. Do you want to eulogize Alabama or talk about Houston?
I'll just say this on Alabama real quick because they were my title favorites. I had them winning the title. I had them beating Texas because when I looked at them and you watch their whole body of work, they look like pros. Like they have pros. They had NBA size. They had guard play, which has been so important in every tournament, and we've seen it in this tournament. I thought they had it all. They had shot block and rim protection. They were top 5 defense. I thought they had it all. But I do want to give some credit to, we had Coach Davenport on our tournament special from Bellarmine. And we kind of asked him, picked his brain about who's going to win the title. And we asked him about Alabama. He said, I think the moment's going to get to them because they're so young. We said, what do you mean? He goes, well, it is hard, especially dealing with what they've had to deal with without, off the floor distractions. He goes, it's not easy. And then once you get further in the tournament, you're going to play more experienced teams that will expose your weaknesses. And I'll be damned if that's not exactly what happened when they got to San Diego State. And so I am a little disappointed in Alabama. And it's funny because this is a great Alabama team. Like for their program, this was a historic season. It was a great season. But ultimately, it ended short of what they should have done in a bracket that really favored them, especially when Arizona got beat. So I think at the end of the day, the high-flying, run-and-gun, modern offense, shoot a bunch of threes, go after it, when it comes to tournament play, historically, it does not work because you've seen San Diego State held them to 3 of 27 from 3, whatever it was. So for Alabama and teams like that to make it to a Final Four and win a title, they're going to have to get more experience. They're going to have to pick and choose their moments of hitting threes, and they're going to have to rely more on getting to the rim and getting to the foul line. But regular season, it was a fun season for Alabama. They came up short. And that's kind of the end of the story for them.
Yeah, I'll take the Houston side here. Houston was my national champion. I just felt like I really backed Houston. I didn't love it, but I backed them because I just thought they were solid. Like they were good enough. They're going to win those games they're expected to win. They will find a way to pull through there. And they get a Miami team that I don't really like. And I was very confident they get by Miami, and they just didn't. It wasn't that. Houston basketball is like they dominate you inside. They're really tough. They're physical. They do all that. They got dominated inside by Norchad. I'm like scouting out that game, and I'm like, all right, Miami has one guy that can play inside, and he is undersized. Houston has multiple pros. They're like, Jarris Walker's a pro. They have multiple guys who will just out-tough him, just get on the glass and just beat him down, and then the guards will do enough. That didn't happen. I backed Houston because I thought they were solid. They'd win the games they were expected to win. They were expected to beat Miami, and they did not. I didn't love them. I wasn't very confident in a champion. I don't think I ever really came off as super confident in Houston. But like also Narrative Nation, the Final Four is in Houston. Come on. That is a dream. This is the dream season. You finally get back to that level you were at in 83, 84 when you went to back-to-back title games, and it's in Houston. You finally got it. It's all lining up, and it's gone.
And Jim Nance, this is his Final Four, which is a Houston graduate, Houston native. So it was like the perfect dream scenario. But again, with Houston, it's like they were really good all year. But did the AAC get them ready enough is the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like they played Memphis really tough 3 times. And they played a couple other really close games that they shouldn't have. I know they lost the Temple. But there's something about those conferences, too. It needs to be said that, if you don't have quality, look at the Big 12 and the Big East and all these others. They beat the hell out of each other. So Houston didn't see a Miami style for a while. Like Memphis's guards are completely different than Miami's. Miami's are more high flying, score the basketball, shoot threes, get up and down the floor. Memphis wants to get up and down the floor, but they're defensive first. And it plays into Houston style of gritty, tough defensive style. When was the last time they seen a Miami style? You'd have to go back to the non-con. So I think there's something to be said too about the scheduling aspect. And I know it's out of their control when it gets to conference play, but I always think between them and Gonzaga and other teams that come up like that, it ultimately hurts them the further they get in the tournament.
Yeah, on one hand, I agree. On the other hand, 2 of our Final Four teams are in the CUSA and Mountain West. So it's like it does in a sense go both ways. But yeah, I agree with you on the general point.
So obviously, upsets happen. It's the bracket. It's March Madness. The craziness continues. Besides our 1 seeds, which is obviously disappointed that they didn't make it, are there any other, we'll say, top half teams? I'll even say just the top 5 seeds that you're wildly disappointed in. that you're like, what the hell went wrong? I mean, mine, and I think it was just a tough region and a tough draw, would be Gonzaga, because I honestly thought that that Drew Timme was going to get it done. And again, he could come back next year. I'd be one where it's like, you're at the point where you're a grad transfer, go to a Power 5. I would love to see Drew Timme and Armando Bacot together. That would be a dynamic duo at UNC. But that's a pipe dream, obviously.
That would be a duo real quick. That would be a duo that if I'm playing against them, I'm daring them to shoot jump shots because neither one can shoot a jumper to save their life.
Of course. So my upset would obviously be Gonzaga, but tough draw at the end of the bracket. Are there any other teams in your guys' eyes that were like, you should have been in the Final Four?
I got two, and they're in the same region, and that's Arizona, Baylor. And Arizona had all this hype. They looked so good in the non-con, and then something happened to them when they got in conference play. Kirk Kriisa did not play well down the stretch of the year. Their bigs were phenomenal. Azuolas Tubelis and Omar Ballo were fantastic. Even in the Princeton game, both of them were fantastic. But their guards really let them down. Courtney Ramey, Kirk Kriisa, Pele Larson. They should have been, at the very least, in the Elite Eight. And to lose to a Princeton team that you had the size on, you had the talent on, you had every metric except for obviously heart, and they to lose in that type of fashion where you had Princeton down and allow them to come back and beat you, super disappointed in Arizona. And then Baylor is the 3 seed in that region. They win the first game, and then the Creighton game should have been their advantage guard play-wise. It should have been. We talked all year about Baylor's guards. They probably have the best set of guards in the country, and they got outplayed badly against Creighton, and I thought that was a huge disappointment. Baylor should have went a lot farther based on guard play, so I think Baylor and Arizona, as far as higher seeds, were probably my two most disappointing outside, of course, like Purdue.
Yeah, one team that, even though they made the Elite Eight, I thought the road really opened up for Texas. Once they get by Penn State, who I thought was a very tough stylistical matchup, and it proved to be. That's a very well-coached Penn State team. Coach Shrewsbury really knew what he was doing, and Jalen Pickett's an incredible player. But once you get by that, Xavier was a bad 3 seed. They should not have been a 3 seed. They got very fortunately seeded. Even more fortunate to have an incredibly easy block of 4. They got gifted a draw. But then Texas gets them. Texas should beat them. And then Texas plays Miami. That's a Miami team they match up really well against. They beat them the entire game, and then they just folded at the end. That's a team I really thought everything opened up for them to make the Final Four. I thought they should have played much better. Even with the Dessou injury, I still think you beat that Miami team. But another one, Marquette. They dominated the Big East, and that is a dream Marquette season. And I guess Michigan State's a hard matchup because Tom Izzo, great coach, and short prep, it's very hard to beat anyone like Izzo. But after that, that's a Kansas State team they match up well against because they don't kill you inside. That's where Marquette was vulnerable. You got Mr. New York City, who I love Marquise Noah. I love him so much. I wish him oh my God, he was so much fun. I've been watching him since he was at Little Rock. Oh my goodness. But I think Tyler Kolek could have had his way with Marquise Noah, especially defensively. And you have multiple guys who can beat you on that team. They have multiple guys that can match up with Keontae Johnson. Then they get FAU. That's another guard-dominant team. Marquette has beaten guard-dominant teams all season long. That is what they've done really well. The region really opened up for them to have a Final Four and another dream season. And they lost a game in Michigan State and didn't just lose. They got outplayed the entire time. Michigan State was the better team on the court, and there was no – Michigan State looked like the 2, and Marquette looked like the 7. And Marquette hadn't looked that poor in a while. I really thought Marquette – everything opened up for them to just have their dream, and they folded.
I love the Marquette shout because there's certain teams every year that they have incredible regular season, win their conferences or whatever it may be, but you just kind of feel in the back of your mind that they're not going to have tournament success. And Marquette was phenomenal this year. I was able to see them play Purdue this year in person. They had a great year, but ever since Shaka took VCU to the Final Four, his tournament success has not been there. He did not have success at Texas. So far at Marquette, there's just certain teams that when you look at the bracket, you're kind of like, I don't know if I should trust them. Like Iowa's always one for me, for instance. I have a hard, fast rule. It's like never trust Iowa in the tournament because they'll put up a lot of points at the end of the regular season. They'll get red hot, make a run in the Big Ten tournament, and then people get excited. But I'm like, they play no defense whatsoever. So do not trust Iowa. So I feel like, Shaka Smart-led teams or Iowa or whoever, when it comes tournament time, there's just something that happens, and the magic that they had in the regular season just evaporates.
Damn good point.
Now we get to our final four. Oh, don't know what you were saying, DeRosa?
No, that's all I got. I said, damn good point. I agree with everything.
100%. So now we get to our final four. I mean, I put out a tweet. I said, whoever can send me that they put these four teams in the final four, you get some free house merch and a smooch on the mouth, because that is impressive. And I think there was like 32 brackets, which is crazy. It's definitely a dad who has 4 kids that go to those 4 schools, right? Or like an alum, like the parents were alumni at UConn and Miami, and their kids went to, went to the other 2. So obviously you got to tip the cap to FAU. That is a Cinderella in the making. I hope they can make it to the championship. You have a team like UConn where they are the heavy favorites right now. I think they're plus 200 to win it all. What are we looking at? Who are we? We could do a round table and go through all the teams. We can, send our roses to whoever's going to get bounced right away. What's the pulse check on this Final Four?
So I think you look at the first game on the left side of the bracket. You look at FAU, San Diego State. The way I would describe it is both of them been super impressive because both are older and both look like grown men teams playing, especially San Diego State. Like you look at them guys, juniors and seniors up and down the roster, they look like physically grown men. So this is going to be a hell of a battle of who establishes their will and pace, because FAU wants to get up and down the floor. They want to shoot threes. They've got a big man in Vladislav Golden who wants to block shots and can hedge out on screens. And, SDSU wants to slow the game down, to take their mid-range jump shots. And also, SDSU is the second best three-point defense in the nation. Teams are shooting like 28% against them from three. I mean, look what they did to Alabama and Creighton. Completely cut them off. I think they combined for 5 of 44 from three, which is insane to do to Alabama and Creighton in back-to-back games. So if FAU can get their tempo, get the pace up and down, can get some threes off, and I don't even think it has to be much. If they can hit like 5 or 6 of them and open the floor up, then that's a huge advantage for them. But I think San Diego State's, the way they defend, run you off the three-point line, make you settle for long contested twos, I think that's going to be too much for FAU to overcome. If they're to win, they're going to have to hit threes. They're going to have to get a good game from John L. Davis. I think Golden's going to have to be a monster inside like he was against K-State. But there's something about SDSU, the way they play defense. And we talked about off air about the dome. The dome and the sidelines shooting is never great in domes. So that always favors the defensive-minded team. So I think FAU is obviously going to be in the game the whole way through because San Diego State's not blowing anybody out. But I just don't know if they can hit enough shots to overcome them.
Yeah, I'm definitely rooting for FAU. I want FAU to win this game. I think it'd be more fun if they win this game. But I feel like San Diego State's just seen a lot of these teams. They've seen like the similar way they play. They know how to like dominate guards and stuff like that. They know how to force some contested shots. FAU's guards can make contested shots, so they have good shot making guards. Like John L. Davis, you mentioned, very good shot making guard. They've got a couple of them. Michael Forrest had a very good game. So I'm hoping FAU can win and they can hit a couple of those shots. And if they can speed the game up, that's a big dub. That being said, I also had 3 of these 4 teams losing in the first round. So who knows what I know? Like I liked Memphis a decent bit over FAU. I thought Memphis outplayed them, frankly, but I was very happy to see FAU win. I wasn't complaining. I had Charleston beating San Diego State. That game was close to the end. I mean, I'm not mad at that pick. I don't know. And then Drake should have beat Miami. They just should have. Drake played the better game. I don't know how they blew that. Drake should have won that game. That was Drake's to lose.
Well, you talk about it, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I just wanted to elaborate on your point. Outside of UConn, who has absolutely steamrolled their way through in the hardest bracket, we all thought, especially when they got revealed. But you look at Miami, you mentioned probably should have lost to Drake. Could easily not even be here. FAU was beaten dead to rights by Memphis, and then Kendrick Davis throws an errant pass that sets them up on this run. San Diego State could have lost to Charleston in round one. So it's funny that 3 of the 4 teams that you mentioned all had to have a little luck in round one to even get here. But this is what this tournament's all about.
Same with UConn, though. Same with UConn. I mean, they weren't out of the, they obviously closed it out against Iona, but at halftime, it could have went either way.
I agree.
You kind of had just I feel like physicality just kind of wears on teams. I think that's kind of what UConn really has. I think that's their big advantage. I think only San Diego State in this Final Four can match it. But like, I think you said on the top, UConn's like plus 200 favorites. I think they're minus 125 where I'm looking to win the whole thing, which is like they have a 55.56, I think it is, % chance to win the tournament at this point. I think there's a reason for it.
Yeah, and you look at UConn's size. My God, they're big. Like their guards are like 6'5" across the board. And then you get to Adama Sanogo, who's 6'10", and then when he needs a breather, you bring in 7'1" or 7'2", however big. I just lost his name. Klingon, thank you. How big Klingon is. They're so big, and their guards are making shots. They're locking in defensively. You're not going to out-tough them. I just don't see how Connecticut doesn't cut the nets down.
Yeah, I agree.
So a UConn San Diego State Final Four. I mean, championship. Is that what we're saying?
I want FAU to win. That's what I'm going with. I want FAU to win, though. I'm rooting for FAU. That's for sure. But man, that championship game would suck. That would be so bad.
What about a narrative nation of FAU versus Miami?
That would be the better. Yeah. That would be the better game, the more exciting game. Like if you're talking the most exciting game to me, it'd be FAU Miami because both teams are loaded with good guard play. Both teams want to get up and down the floor. That would be the first one to like 90 wins that game. As opposed to San Diego State, UConn, it's going to be the first one to score 40 wins that one.
Yeah, and FAU on their run, ever since they had like you mentioned, the errant pass by Kendrick Davis, and they had that really bad jump ball call that was definitely a Memphis player called a timeout. That's what happened. Yeah, he's sitting there, he's holding the ball timeout, and they're just like, no, jump. It's like, okay, I'll take it for FAU, but they've played well since that point. Like that was a Kansas State team that was hard to beat with Mr. New York City and New York City. Like I feel like Narrative Nation was all on Mr. New York City. It didn't work. So as a firm member of Team Narrative Nation, it's been a rough tournament for us.
Yeah, we talked about the script in football. There is no script in college basketball, man. There is no way in hell this sport can ever be rigged because, I mean, just look at this bracket. Look at this bracket.
And that's the thing that we love about it, right, is that literally anybody can get hot and win enough games to make you win 4 in a row, you're to a Final Four. You win 6 in a row, you're a title, or you win the title. I will make a quick point on Miami. You look at their road. We've talked about other teams' roads, right? FAU kind of got lucky with Memphis, and then they had to play FDU as opposed to Purdue, etc. Miami went through Drake. They went through Indiana, Houston, Texas. That's a brutal road. Like these guys are so well coached. They are so guard dominant, and they've got a big in Norchad Omier. I don't know if he's going to be enough by himself to defend against the bigs of Connecticut, but I've learned to never count out this Miami team and never count out Coach Larinaga. Wouldn't be surprised if they throw in some old school, like his old George Mason zone against UConn to make them a 3-point shooting team. I think Miami keeps this close, and I would not be surprised if the Hurricanes don't pull the little mini upset in this game. But I think UConn's just on another level right now.
Yeah, I think that zone could actually stop. I think that's a very sharp point. I didn't even think about that. That's a very sharp point. I think that zone could give them problems. I think the one worry with that would be I think UConn has enough guys they can put just at the top of the key who can just see over the Miami defenders and just make that right pass. But even then, if you're making Andre Jackson a jump shooter, that's the way to beat this team. I'm assuming he'd be the guy they'd put at the high post and just work from there. But yeah, I could see it, but I don't know. I just don't. I've said it every single game. I've been against Miami every game, and I've been wrong every time. I will admit that immediately. But I don't think Norchad's enough. I said that against Houston. I was wrong. I didn't say that against Texas, but I definitely said that against TJD, and I was wrong there too. So I don't know, but I don't think he's enough. I think Sanogo's going to have his way.
Think about this too, because Larinaga at George Mason used a 2-3 zone a lot because, a lot of it's because he didn't have the guys to handle like the UConn when they pulled the upset in North Carolina during that run. But they've got that in their back pocket. And you go back to when UConn lost their games in the Big East, when they lost like 6 of 8 or 6 of 9, whatever it was. They settled for too many threes. And again, I hate to keep belaboring the point, but these domes do not lend themselves to good, especially outside shooting. And we've not seen good shooting in the tournament so far as a whole. It's like 30% from 3 as a whole. So if you can make them fall in love with the 3-point shot, that's the way to beat them. And if UConn has one of their cold nights, Miami could easily pull the upset. And they might come out play man the whole night, but I wouldn't be surprised them to come out some zone.
So that's a therapy session. I think we got a lot off our chest. Obviously presented by onlinetherapy.com. Number one toolbox, including videos, phones, and therapy sessions. Get 20% off with House to start your journey to happiness. But as we close out, gentlemen, any final thoughts? Any things that you want to take off your chest? The floor is for both you and DeRosa and Josh. Let's hear it and let's close out the evening.
I said this last night on my guest spot with somebody else, and this was a hot take, and I know it's going to raise some questions and eyeballs. But when it comes to NCAA tournament, like we're talking and waxing poetic about FAU and San Diego State and all these underdogs. But I'm of the belief that if you don't say it outwardly, I feel like a lot of people feel this way that cover the sport and love college basketball, or at least the tournament. We love upsets, but only for the first round. Because once you get into the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, there's a part of you that wants to see the best play the best. Like, I think if everybody loved the Florida Atlantic, Kansas State, San Diego State, Creighton, but I think we would have been even more excited to see Alabama, Arizona, or Kansas and UCLA. And then like last year's Final Four did mega numbers because there was 4 blue bloods in the Final Four. You had Duke, Carolina, Villanova, and Kansas. So I'm of the belief, as a hot take, that we love the upsets, but only in the first round. Or if it's only one team. If it was just FAU and then UConn, Miami, and let's say Alabama, then you have that one underdog you could root for. Be like, oh, that's a cool story. But if there's too many upsets and takes out some of the big-time matchups we want to see, then people are kind of like, I don't know about it. Just a hot take. Something to chew on.
Yeah, I see why people would believe that. I'm a firm member of Team Underdog because all my teams always suck in any sport, whatever. You mentioned I'm a very, very passive Yankees fan because my mom grew up a Yankees fan, but like I don't watch baseball like that. I'll turn on in postseason, great, but yeah, all my teams always suck. So like I'm rooting for the other fellow losers to like break through because it's like maybe my team can break through. Taylor Heineke was my guy, maybe he can break through. But yeah, one thing I need to note here. Miami made the Final Four, and they're all DMV kids. They're all kids from either D.C., Maryland, Virginia that are recruited and played high school ball in some way, AAU ball in that area. The best player, the guy who was favored to win the national, whatever, most outstanding player, whatever you call it, Jordan Hawkins, DMV kid. He went to a high school in my county before going to DeMatha. Coach Cooley, come on. Recruit the DMV. There's a Sidwell kid going to Villanova. No. I cannot deal with another Sadiq Bey and Josh Hart for 4 years. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't have that again. We can't do that. Come on.
Had to plug the DMV and had to plug Cooley just to stick it to everyone one last time, of course. All right.
Poke at him. Just touch him.
Poke at him. I know we did we had the Georgetown breaking news onto the road to the Garden a couple weeks ago, but when a major DMV talent lands with Cooley, we're definitely going to need to have you versus the Flex Hoop guys, whatever the show is going to be called next. He's RIP the Flex.
To quote the great Chael Sonnen, 1-on-1, 2-on-1, or 5-on-1. I'll make them all need 9-1-1. Ready for them all. Send them all. Don't send anybody you want back.
I love that Chael quote. I was a big Chael guy, man. I love Chael.
Love Uncle Chael. Oh, my God.
The gangster from West Lynn, Oregon.
Meet greets. Got to watch your background there. That's the American gangster.
Yeah. Hey, real quick on Georgetown, though. We talked Kentucky. Xavier Wheeler just entered the portal. I feel like he would be a good fit for Cooley at Georgetown. An experienced guard that can get up and down the floor. He'd be a little out of control sometimes, but I feel like that would be a good fit.
I feel like Cooley could find a way to rein him in. I'm at the point to where I think I'm going to give him the season just to say, look, do whatever you can. If you can make the tournament, that's great. If you can get people, I think it really matters more. So many people have been focused on like tournament success for the program, and sure, you want to win games, but I feel like if you can get people interested in the program, that's a bigger win almost, because the worst thing that can happen to a program is people get apathetic. People don't care. They don't care enough to get angry. And that's where Georgetown is right now. So if you can get people back invested, I think that's the big win. So anything they can do, I'm not going to question any player he brings in or anything like that. If you get people interested in the program, that is all that is a successful season in my eyes. And which is such a sad thing to say, but that's where we are, baby. Therapy session. Hell yeah.
That's what we do. That's what we do. So Josh, Michael, thank you as always. And for the House of College Hoops content, you know our links, you know our sites. Find us everywhere on YouTube, podcasts, you name it. And we will catch you for the next one.